This is the Mile High Five podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to FI, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview FI experts, side hustlers, people on their way to FI, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to milehighfi.com.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Mile High Fi podcast. I am Carl Jensen with my co-host.
I'm Doug Cunnington.
Doug, so what are we going to talk about today? It's going to be a little bit different.
So it will be a little bit lighter on the FI area, and really, this is like show and tell for Carl and I. So not too much showing, but we both got back from vacation. We were gone roughly the same time, vastly different trips, and we haven't had a chance to catch up. And I was like, well, this will be fun to talk about. I mean, I think it's very light on FI material, but Elizabeth and I actually talked about FI and not working and those kind of topics quite a lot. But really, it's just you and I catching up, talking about vacation.
Yeah, and we both did meet people from FI communities while we were in our different places, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I think we didn't talk about who was going first, but I think I'll kick it over to you, Carl, and we both kept notes. You actually have like a notebook, and I kept a journal. I actually didn't do a good job journaling. It was more like bullet points and just the facts, like what did I do that day? But as maybe 3 or 4 days in, I realized like, oh, I'm actually getting into the flow of journaling. And Amber Lee Grant and I talked about like travel journaling and journaling in general. And I was like, I got to get back into it. When you go on trips, like you do so much stuff, and it's a great way to remember, because by the time you get back, it's so fleeting. Like if you don't think about it and write it down. So I was really trying to make sure I wrote down like where we ate and like places we went and as much as I can remember. So what was your practice of like writing stuff down?
It is, Doug. I found that as such a great tip because I tried to keep notes as well. I would just open up my phone and put them down. And I encouraged our kids to take notes too, because you're right. To back up a second, I actually wrote a blog post about my trip there, and I reviewed it this morning, and it kind of surprised me how much of it had I don't think I would have remembered half that stuff. It was gone already. And from talking to other people about the trip, these memories surface. And you're right, if you don't write them down, they're going to be gone. I think it's fun. It'll be fun for both of us to look at our notes in a year or two from now, because if you don't do that, poof.
Yeah, and another thing is, when you're drinking the whole time, it definitely gets blurry. Your memory does not work as well then. So there were definitely a couple pieces where I was like, well, that's the day we started drinking at 11 on the beach. So yeah, that happens sometimes. So, okay, Carl, how did you divide up your stuff? How do you want to cover it?
I have a couple different sections and a bunch of random thoughts. But first, I have a question for you, Doug, which relates to my trip to Germany. Would you like to touch my monkey?
Yeah. Whenever someone asks you that, you should say yes.
Do you know what that is from?
No.
Oh, man. Saturday Night Live used to have this. It was a Mike Myers skit called Sprockets, where they would make fun of like German culture. They'd wear black and have their hair slicked back and talk in a monotone and all this shit. It was probably my favorite skit. And it's one of the things where you show some people, I showed it to Mindy and she's like, this is not funny at all. Like I find nothing, it's not funny and it's not amusing. I hate this. And me, I love it. It's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And there was a bit on there where Mike Myers would be interviewing someone and he'd say, would you like to touch my monkey? And then they would zoom out and there'd be a real life monkey standing there and they would go like, touch the monkey.
It rings a bell a little bit, but I'll have to go back and look up a few on YouTube there. So
yeah, Germany's most disgusting home videos. I will put a link to that in the show notes. It's awesome. Yeah, see, you might like it. You laughed at that. So I bring that up because everything I thought about Germany was derived from sprockets. Not really, but I had a lot of conceptions in my head about what I thought Germany would be like. Very orderly, everything's on time, everyone is kind of respectful, they follow the rules and that type of thing. And I got to tell you, Doug, it lived up to all the stereotypes I had built up in my head. which were all pretty good stereotypes, like no bad ones. There were a couple bad things, which we'll get to, but we'll start with the good. Yeah. So I should back up a second. We went to Berlin and Munich, and we split our time pretty much evenly between those two places. And I've always wanted to see Berlin because of the history. You read about the Berlin Wall and everything that happened during World War II. That's where Hitler met his demise, and you get to see all this stuff in person. It's so freaking cool to see I don't know how much of a history buff you are, but when you ask people about history, most people seem to resonate with that history because it's recent. We had supervillains and all that. So to see all that stuff in person was really incredible. We did a bike tour the first day in Germany, which is great. The first day in Berlin, because Berlin is super bike friendly. Someone recommended it on Twitter, Fat City Bike Tours, and it was awesome. So we went past the Berlin Wall and all this other stuff. And you see this, we were at one spot by the Berlin Wall, and this guy's like, okay, look at the building. You see all the holes in the facade of the building? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, those are bullet holes from the war. And you'll see that in a lot of buildings, the ones still standing, the ones that survived the war. It's like, holy crap, these people there was planes and guns and all this stuff, and people were being shot at. Yeah, pretty crazy. So the history was the attraction to Berlin, seeing the wall. Like they've got markers on the ground. I think Peter Frechter was the first guy to try to escape from East Germany to West Germany. And there's actually two walls with a zone in between where they would shoot you, and sometimes there'd be landmines in there. And he was climbing up. He almost made it. He was climbing up the western wall, and they shot him, and he didn't die instantly. So this poor guy is wailing, and no one would come get him because no one else wanted to start any kind of bigger conflict. So this guy took like an hour to die in the street, and there's a marker right there, like here's where Peter died. And now there's like I don't know what's there, like a CVS or their version of it right next to it. So the world has changed. So the history was the first thing I noted. Super cool. One more thing to say about that. There was one spot where the wall had been demolished, but you could look and see the West German side and East German side in the same view. So the East German side, as you might expect, looks like a college dormitory, like crappy architecture, Soviet bloc architecture. And then the West German side is all green. There's trees, windows everywhere and stuff like that. So it was it was cool to see the contrast between the two different political systems. One works pretty well, the other one, not so much.
And then was the rest of the family interested in the historical aspect as well?
Yeah, our older kid had learned about it in school, so she was all on board. The younger one was like, this sucks. I think she would have been more interested a couple of years later after she would have known more about the backstory of everything.
Do any of you speak any German? Was it difficult communicating at all?
Nein. Sprechen Sie English? It wasn't that difficult. Most people there speak English. I think we inadvertently stole some merchandise from a brewery because of a communication failure. And I'm going to send them money. I've got 20 euros left over, so that's on my to-do list. But except in rural places, almost everyone spoke English. But we would make an attempt. We would try to say what we wanted to say in Germany. Ein Liter Bier, bitte. Can I have a liter of beer, please? And then they would quickly realize that we weren't natives, and they would convert to English. So yeah, no communication issues except for the stolen mug from First Carl Brewery.
How did you accidentally steal it? They were like, "Hey, it's free," or like you thought you already paid?
Yeah, so we went up to the checkout counter, and we had bought 2 bottles of beer in this mug. So I just grabbed the mug off the thing and stuck it on the counter. So we had our 2 beers there and the mug. Oh. And this woman starts talking to us in German, like for like 2 minutes. And we couldn't like tell her to stop because she wouldn't stop talking. So we're finally like, sprechen Sie English? And she was like, she looked at us for a second and just started laughing. So she was super confused. And I think she probably felt like an idiot because she had been speaking to us and we didn't know what was going on. But then the weird thing was she continued to speak in German after that. So maybe she was humiliating us, but then I paid and the whole situation was kind of uncomfortable. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. So I'm just the thing's going to come up on the credit card. I'm going to tap it. They have touchless payment there and we're going to get out of here because this is strange. So then I went to check my receipt and it was only like $4, and beer there is pretty cheap. So it's not unusual to pay $4 for 2 beers. But I'm like, this mug had to cost more than that. So I'm pretty sure she thought maybe we were drinking of it and we just happened to carry it into their gift shop or whatever and didn't charge us for it. So I don't know. So First Carl Brewery, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm going to send you some euros to make up for this transgression.
It was an accident. It's okay.
It was an accident, and I'm going to make up for it. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But yeah, one cool thing there is the transportation there. You know about the Autobahn, and they've got no speed limits for parts of it and all that. And we took full advantage of that. We had a Skoda, Skoda, which is like a budget Volkswagen. And I got to tell you, Doug, that thing was not up to the task of Autobahn driving. And it would get up to 180 kilometers an hour, which I think is somewhere like around maybe 110 miles per hour. And that's not fast on the Autobahn. So you'd be in the left lane, and people there are very respectful and they know how to drive. There's no idiots in the left lane going 10 miles under the speed limit. If you're in the left lane, you watch your rear view mirror, and if someone is approaching quickly, you get out of there. And you're only in that if you want to pass. Like most people would stay in the rightmost lane unless they wanted to pass, which is pretty cool. So you'd be in that thing going 110. I remember there was one time where we had the thing floored. We're going as fast as we can, and I see some cars coming up behind me, so I got over. And the first one was a Porsche 911. The second one was some kind of Audi station wagon. And then this Volkswagen van. I'm like, what the hell was that? But they were all hauling ass. I don't know how fast they were going, but the roads there are very nice, and it's so cool. Everyone there like really knows how to drive and aren't dicks like sometimes they are here on American roads. Like I didn't know that a right turn on red was not allowed. I'm just like, America, I can make a right turn on a red. And I went to attempt that, and someone will gently alert you immediately that you are not supposed to do that. A gentle honk on the horn, like maybe. And then you look, and this guy is like, no, shaking his head at me. I'm like, okay, sorry, dumb American. And the lights there, they turn green, yellow, red, but then they go red, yellow, green, which is actually pretty cool. So you know when it's going to turn green. Oh. And I don't know if that's because like the rental car is a stick shifter. You have to pay extra for an automatic, and that gives you time to get back in gear and get ready to move. But I thought that was cool. America should do that. Yeah.
And I remember, I guess a few people told me recently, it's all manual transmissions over there pretty much.
Yeah, you can get automatics, but I think they're still obscure, which is kind of surprising. I thought they would have converted because I don't think there's fuel efficiency advantages for stick shifts anymore like there used to be.
It's a good filter for like Americans coming over there, I guess.
Yeah. You could drive a stick shift, right, Doug? Or?
I can. It's been a while, but I learned on one and then had one for maybe like 3 or 4 years. Okay. So yeah, but it's been a while. But it's like riding a bike, right?
Yeah, it would come back to you.
Yeah, no big deal. Cool.
Yeah, next Germany is beautiful. One thing I noticed from the get-go, which I really like, and it reminded me of Vermont because there are no billboards. There's not big signs everywhere, like nothing. So you're driving through the countryside and all you see is green, and that's pretty much it. I really like that. Like here you drive through Denver and there's Budweiser billboards, Denver Broncos, and all these attorneys trying to ambulance chaser attorneys. So you don't see any of that in Germany whatsoever. I thought that was super cool. I know Vermont's the same way, and I remember noticing that there. So every place should do that.
Yeah, the billboards really muck up the countryside, and there's a few spots that we've been through where there's no. Yeah, Vermont's one, and then driving through like the middle of nowhere in Canada, there were very few signs because like people just don't use the roads.
Another thing is, and this goes back to my sprockets stereotypes, is everyone follows the rules and they're pretty. I don't even know if respectful is the right way, but they're orderly. Like they know what they're supposed to do, and they do it. I remember. We took the train, like the metro, and we go on the escalator, and I look up, and everyone is just on the right side because that's what you're supposed to do. If you want to stand, you go on the right side. If you want to walk up the thing, then you leave a space there so other people could walk up, and everyone would do that. They drove the correct way. If you were if you were standing in the bike lane, people would get angry with you because you don't do that. The bike lane is for bikes. You don't walk in the fucking bike lane. So if you're in the bike lane and you're a pedestrian, get the hell out. And we never got in trouble for that, but we saw other people where some dude would be on a bike and there'd be a bunch of tourists standing there looking at the wall and they'd be like, please, out for the bike lane, or whatever the translation of that is in German. But I kind of like that. You've got basic rules and you follow them. It makes life a little bit more pleasant for everyone.
Yeah, just a little etiquette. I know when we were flying out of Denver, we're on like the moving walkway. And yeah, there were a couple fat people just like camped up and they were just standing there, like blocking the whole thing. And we weren't in a hurry. I don't even know why we were on the moving walkway. Elizabeth walked on there. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we're getting on this thing. And yeah, people were trying to get by and they'd like say, excuse me. The two fat people or overweight people, is that the politically incorrect? Obese. I don't know. What word can I say?
I'm trying to think of a term. I don't know it, Doug. This is dangerous territory, Doug. I'm going to be quiet at this point.
It doesn't matter how big they were. They were blocking the way. And yeah, they never got the hint. They never like moved over. They were just like, we're standing here. We're blocking the way and people could squeeze through. But that was the best that they could do.
Yeah, isn't that annoying? I had a similar experience. I was at an airport. And I remember there was even a sign like when you got on the thing and said walkers left. If you want to stand, stay to the right. So I go over there and there's a bunch of ladies with like strollers and stuff. And they were blocking the whole thing too. So I'm like, excuse me, I'm just trying to get through. And this lady starts yelling at me. She's like, well, excuse us, sir. I'm like, well, fuck off. Read the sign. It says it right there. Yeah. Like, get over. You don't have to be rude like that. You shouldn't have been rude like that in any case.
That's dangerous territory too, man. Ladies with strollers, they're called mothers. I know that one.
Okay.
We got to look out. Yeah, we may have to edit this whole thing.
Send your email to Doug at milehighfiveclub.com. Oh, man. Yeah, but I like that. There should be certain rules of etiquette, like just very basic rules that aren't complicated. When you drive, you stay to the right. When you're on the escalator or the other thing, stay to the right. Just don't be an asshole, I guess. That should be your fundamental rule.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you got there?
I should talk about the food a little bit. I love, and this is another controversial topic that we might get in trouble for, but do you like sauerkraut, Doug? Or?
Yeah, it's fine.
Really?
In the right context, sure. I've made some, I ferment all sorts of shit. And yeah, I've made some sauerkraut before.
I'm actually surprised by your answer because usually that's a pretty controversial thing. People, just like sprockets, people either love it or they think it's the most disgusting thing. Like they can't even handle the smell of it. And I happen to like it a lot. So every opportunity I could, I'd order that. I think at one place, the waiter thought we were nuts. We ordered beers. And then the guy's like, do you want any food? I'm like, just sauerkraut. He's like, excuse me? I'm like, yeah, just a big plate of sauerkraut. And the guy kind of looked at me like I was nuts and came back with it. But the sauerkraut was really good there. We went to one place, I think it's called Bavarian Kraut, where they cook it so it's a little bit brown, and I think they do something with brown sugar so it's sweet. It's not like some of the fresh stuff you would buy here in the store where it burns your tongue off. And it was very tasty. There was some kind of little berries in there or something like that. Oh. So yeah, it was really good. I was trying to get Mindy to try it. I'm like, this isn't the same thing as an American sauerkraut. It's different. And she's like, that's not going anywhere near my mouth. I'm like, come on, just try it. It's different. No. So still couldn't get her to try it. And they had, Doug. I was walking around and Mindy's like, oh my God, look at the produce stand. So I look, I'm like, yeah, they've got produce there. She's like, no, look, it's asparagus. And I look, and at first I thought it was some kind of sausage. The asparagus was probably the same diameter as a Costco hot dog, or maybe even a little bit thicker. And it was the white variety, which I don't really see in the stores here anymore. I have seen it before, but just these massive stalks. I'm like, oh my God, I want to buy that. But we weren't in Airbnbs. We had no way to prepare it. I should have got some and just ate it raw for the hell of it. But
quick question. So you described it as the diameter of a Costco hot dog. Is that the size of a normal hot dog, or are these, in bulk size? Is it worth the distinction of a Costco hot dog versus a normal hot dog?
Yeah, Costco hot dogs are probably they're a little bit thicker. They're not like something you would get.
I think that's the
girth. Girth matters, right? So they looked more like a Costco hot dog is probably more like a bratwurst, a little bit thicker. And that's what it was like this Mutant big ass asparagus. It was long too. Like, I don't know.
Did you take some pictures?
I did not take a picture. I so regret not doing that. I thought of that after I got home too. I'm like, why didn't I take pictures of that?
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought, but it is cool to see like the different foods that are in the supermarkets and stuff like that. Just in different locations, and maybe they like a different variety, the girthier kind of asparagus.
Yeah, they like their asparagus big. But yeah, the food there was all good. It gets you can only eat bratwurst so many times, but yeah, it was all good. I like their to transition a little bit. They're very environmentally friendly. Like you don't see much plastic there at all. And even the plane, it was Lufthansa, which is a German airline. They actually had like silverware on the plane, which surprised me. Like cups that they would reuse. Whenever they had disposable stuff, it was made out of wood, like these little wood spoons, things like that. So there isn't a lot of waste, or if there is, it's compostable, which I thought was pretty cool. Wind turbines everywhere and solar panels everywhere too. And they're pretty high up in latitude. I'm not sure what it's comparable to America. It might even be like Canada. I should have looked this up. But yeah, it surprised me, especially like way more solar panel density. It'd be cool. You'd be going through these old ancient villages where you could tell these houses are like hundreds of years old and they'd be covered in solar panels, which is pretty neat. And I guess I looked this up. Their electrical rates are similar to what they are in Hawaii. They're about quadruple what we pay here in Longmont. But they do that willingly, and they're doing that to build out their alternative energy infrastructure. So they're thinking ahead, which is good. Maybe they're not moving as fast as they need to be with what's going on in the world right now, but it's cool to see their forward thinking. Like, if you were to propose like an extra tax to Americans, like on gas to pay for wind turbines, I think we'd have a civil war. So they think a little bit differently there.
Yeah. When I went to, I know you shifted over to the environmental and sort of ideas with the food. So, there's only so much sauerkraut that you can have. What other stuff? Like, is there just like, normal things, you get roast chicken, or there's whatever steak, or like just normally where would you guys eat out and stuff?
Yeah. Schnitzel, lots of pork. I think pork is a lot more prevalent there. It almost seemed like pork is a bigger deal than beef, which seems kind of the opposite of America. But really good bakery stuff. Man, we bought one of those, like so stereotypical, but like this massive pretzel that's like as big as your head. And we all split the thing up. Like that could have been a meal in itself. And so good. It's probably the best pretzel I ever had. We noticed they were all different. Like we got a pretzel at one place and the thing was like as hard as a rock. I could have thrown it at someone and like injured them. But then other ones would be soft and chewy. And I'm not sure if one was a legit one and the other was some kind of tourist thing, but the soft and chewy one was good. Beer, I guess we should talk about that. Germany has a beer culture, but that was actually one of the more disappointing things because America is so experimental. Like we put all kinds of shit in beer, and some of it we probably cross the line many times. We've got peanut butter beer, and I think there's even a mushroom beer. And in Germany, I noticed most places had 4 different kinds. You get the Helles, which is like a super light beer, a Pilsner, a Dunkel, and maybe a Marzen, and not even like a double Dunkel, which we see around here. And that was pretty much it. We were talking to someone there, and they're like, well, you have to go to this particular brewery. Like, they're the best in Munich. They're known for this. I'm like, yeah, this tastes the exact same as this version of beer that I've had everywhere else here. And it was good. The beer was well done, just not the variety or the experimentation that we have in America.
Yep. And I think it's worth pointing out, if people don't know, like the Colorado is very progressive with like beer and breweries, and like the Brewers Association is like in Boulder, like just 15 minutes away. So the breweries around here are like some of the best in the country. They were like brewing like beers that were on the edge of what we were ready for, like microbrew wise, like way ahead of time. And like the Great American Beer Festival is in Denver. So there's a lot of good beer around here. So it's hard to get impressed when you go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. But I think like I'll walk that back a little bit. It was very well done. Like every beer I had there, occasionally I'll have a beer here, and this happens more often than I'd like. You can tell they screwed something up. Like there's what's that chemical, that acetyl or whatever, in the beer?
Diacetyl.
Diacetyl. Yeah. That probably happens maybe 1 out of every 20 times, or there's something off with the beer here. And I never detected that there even though it was the same thing and kind of boring after a while, everything was very well done, which was good.
Yeah. And I think those specific beers, lagers, all of the ones that you mentioned are lagers, and that's what Germany is known for. They are difficult to make. So like if there's any issue, like you can taste it. So I'm sure they were really well done. Now, one of the non-lagers that is popular is a Hefeweizen. Did you try any Hefs out there?
We did not try those, and I don't particularly like that kind of beer, so I did not try it.
Okay. And one of the well-known ones is, I think it's called Francis Connor. This is one you may run across, and they have like their whole line, but that's an ale, and it's a wheat beer. So you probably don't like the extra wheat and gluten. It like upsets your stomach or something like that. Like you feel too bloated.
Yeah.
It's a really like kind of heavy beer compared to like a Pilsner.
Yeah, I just never liked the taste of those, but
Okay.
yeah, it was awesome. Part of the thing is the atmosphere too around the beer culture. Like every town, even we went to this little tiny town and there was probably 6 houses there, but then they've got this epic beer garden, like with 20 outdoor tables. And I think this was a brewery, so this was a little bit different and they distributed, but yeah, all kinds of people out there with their families, people working on their laptops. We went to the Hofbrau House. Do you know what that is, Doug? Or
yeah,
the famous one in music, and we walk in there and it's beautiful, this old building, and they're playing oompa music with the guy in the tuba. And I love that atmosphere. It was so much fun. I don't know if I ever want to go to Oktoberfest with huge crowds like that, but I could see how much fun that could be with the music and the atmosphere. Everyone's going crazy, but people are respectful. People aren't dicks with their drinking like they are here too. I never noticed any bad behavior and anything like that. So
nice. And quick shout out to a friend of mine, Brian, who I worked with him in the consulting world. And I was like, Carl, you got to check out this guy's brewery. Like he consulted for years, did some other stuff, quit that, has a brewery with a couple locations. We were talking, we don't know how to say the name. Like, can you spell it and give it your best shot?
I think what was it? Was there an R in there? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Braughier maybe, and there was like some dots or something over one of the letters.
Yeah, it's like Bruggier or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll put a link to it. They're on Instagram, but if you're in Berlin, right? It's in Berlin.
Yeah, they have 2 different locations.
Okay, so people can check it out. And, Brian's a good guy. He actually got me into beer. I was telling Carl earlier, we worked together in New York and we would go into the city. And then Brian, he was like, oh, you got to try out this beer. We went to a Belgian bar and it was Delirium Tremens. So it was like the little pink elephant, there was a neon sign. He was like, you got to try this one. And that was like one of the first like good beers and like a great import beer. So yeah, Brian got me into beer a little bit before I started brewing, which was kind of cool.
Okay. So before you met him, were you just drinking Miller Lights or what were you doing before him?
A lot of liquor. So I would do a lot of shots and like mixed drinks and stuff like that. But the go-to beer was usually Coors Light, sometimes Bud Light. Didn't like Miller so much, but yeah, literally as I was getting into beer, like I was drinking Coors Light.
Cool.
Very watery.
Well, I'm glad you met Brian. He changed your life for the better.
Yeah, it's so cool. He opened up a spot and you brought back a couple beers, which I'll try soon. So, all right.
Yeah. So I've got one more good point and then I'll say the things I did not like. So one cool thing was I published a blog post. We'll link to that in the show notes about my experiences in Germany. And I published it about 2/3 of the way through the trip. And I had a couple people say, hey, we're here if you want to meet up. And we actually met up with one of them, Monica and Patrick, who drove like 100 kilometers to meet us. I felt bad. I thought he happened to be in Munich. He's like, oh no, we drove out here. I'm like, oh shit. Well, Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. But it was pretty neat talking to some locals. And it's kind of surreal to have people in like Germany reading your stuff. I didn't ever expect I never thought anyone would read it. So when you meet people in Germany, it's pretty cool when you go abroad. And And yeah, there's readers there. So yeah, we
Huh.
enjoyed there. We met up with them for probably 3 or 4 hours, and that was a lot of fun.
And they're German. They didn't like relocate from somewhere else.
Yeah, they were German. Patrick had worked in North Carolina for about a year and a half. This is pretty cool. He actually bought like a big ass Mustang V8 stick shift and brought it back to Germany.
Whoa.
So there's probably not many Mustangs in Germany, but this guy has one. I'm like, man, I wish I could have drove your car on the Autobahn instead of our stupid Skoda.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And any other people reach out, like to read the post or anything?
Yeah, we had some, and I'm trying to think if there was anything interesting from that. We didn't meet up with anyone else, but yeah, people from Copenhagen as well, who were super cool. They actually invited us to use their home. They were going to be in Italy, and yeah, we could have used their home, but we tried to work it in, but it would have been too much. I do want to go to Denmark. It seems awesome. That's where my family's from. So
Oh, cool.
just an excuse to go back there someday.
Very nice. Yeah. So what cons did you select?
Yeah, there were a couple. Smoking is a very big deal there. And it's allowed. There's no, I guess I never saw, I don't think you're allowed to smoke inside, but every beer garden or any outdoor place, people would be smoking. And you try to find some area where they weren't smoking. You'd find some corner, like try to make it downwind or upwind from the rest of the place. And then inevitably someone would come stand next to you and start lighting up. That was pretty annoying. And I looked this up. The thought I had after this, is it because do people actually smoke there, or is it because it's allowed where it's more disallowed here? So then I've got some other kind of bias. And it turns out their smoking rate is about twice what it is in the United States. And it's actually like the vaping, at least to me, is a little bit less annoying. It doesn't this cloud and then it disperses, but people don't vape there much. At least what we saw, it was all full on cigarettes. So you'd sit down for a pretzel and a beer or whatever. Then someone sits down next to you and lights up, which was kind of annoying and surprising. I thought they would have been past that, but I guess not.
Yeah, that is surprising. Occasionally when I see people smoke, not really so much around here, but yeah, when I see people smoke, I'm like, wow, do people still smoke? Like that's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You just don't see it that much. I guess here you see a lot of vapors.
Yeah.
You see the.
And again, I mean, I never smoked. I think I tried like maybe 2 cigarettes or something, and I got no buzz from it because I hear people that actually like respond like well, or they enjoy nicotine. They're like, yeah, it's great. I love it. But yeah, I never got anything out of it. So what about you? You just never tried? No,
Yeah, I never even tried it. I always thought it smelled disgusting, and to inhale smoke just did not appeal to me. So
yeah, kind of crazy. But I think, like you said, it's like more disallowed in many places around here, and like socially, we're obviously looking down on smokers right now. So like people are like, I'll like do this away from everyone else. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, the other weird thing in Germany is, and I'll back up a second, like their public transportation is awesome. So we bought a €9 pass that gave us unlimited transportation for the whole month of June. And it was everything except for like trains between cities. So we could go into a city, we could take as many bus rides, as many train rides as we wanted. But the thing I noticed that was kind of weird is they don't have turnstiles. You just walk on the train. And I guess sometimes there will be like an undercover person who stands up and said, hey, I need to see everyone's tickets. And if you don't have a ticket, it's a pretty big fine. But pretty much you just walk on and off the train. But the bathrooms are not like that. Everything is a pay toilet. So you have to pay money and then you go through a turnstile thing to pee, which I thought was kind of strange. And I told you the train story because at some of the rest stops there, they actually had a guard there. Even though they had a turnstile, you had to pay, go through the turnstile. And then they had some guy standing there just to make sure you paid. Because if you could like do a limbo and get under that thing or perhaps go over. So I thought it was kind of amusing that the public transportation is free flowing, but not the bathrooms. And I talked to someone about that and they said that keeps down on like vagrants trying to camp out in there and things like that. So Maybe it's okay for that respect, but I found it weird that you had to pay to pee. Like they could just have the same security guard keeping the vagrants out of there instead of checking to make sure you paid your euro or whatever to get in and out of the bathroom. And I can't imagine, like sometimes I've had times in my life where you really got to go, and what would have happened if you didn't have like your money to stick in the machine or whatever? I guess you're just, I don't know what happens. I don't even want to speculate. It's a terrifying situation.
What were they pretty clean then?
Oh, they were great. The bathrooms are top notch. They would have doors that went from the floor to the ceiling. Like sometimes here, there's like a 2-inch gap at the airport and you can see what everyone's doing in there. Yeah, the bathrooms were outstanding there. They were all good. So I guess, and maybe the money goes towards that too. Maybe they have like a devoted crew making sure the bathrooms are top notch. So yeah, it just seemed weird to me that you had to pay. Germany come up with a better system for that.
And side note, if you heard a little noise there, that was Georgie bumping into where we have the microphones plugged in. We usually don't have her down here, even though I really like her. It's because she's very pushy. So right now she's just like trying to get me to pet her. She's like reaching up with her paw. And it's very cute, but it is a little distracting while we're trying to record. So I'm sorry, Carl. I know this is frustrating.
It's okay. We should interview Georgie at some point. Will she speak? Does she know that command where you can?
No, not on command. Only when you don't want her to bark is when she'll do it. So it's very rare. She doesn't bark too much, but she's like, I really need to be petted here. So some people may be able to see her snout coming up over the table here if you're watching on YouTube. But yeah, she's a very needy dog. So we'll move on here. Yeah, the bathroom thing is interesting, but I can see the value, and there's a portion of the San Diego trip that I'll tell you about that has to do with like bathrooms and stuff like that. But
yeah, I've been there. I can tell where that one is going.
Yeah. Other overall impressions of Germany. Would you go back? Like, are there a lot more places to see?
Yeah, it was so good. I can't wait to go back. We did many of the things we wanted to do in Germany, but we didn't really get a chance to explore. Like I like to go to neighborhoods and stuff like that, and we never did that. In Munich, we went to Dachau, the concentration camp, and that consumed a day. But I had all of these other things I wanted to do on the list, like the BMW museum and some other things, and we didn't have a chance to do any of that. So I really want to go back. I know a mutual friend of ours, Matt G, is talking about going over there in about a year for his 40th birthday and inviting friends to go over there. So if he does that, I might try to get in on that. I also think it would be fun to go to one of the festivals, maybe not the big one in Munich, the Oktoberfest there, but I guess Jake, who has been on the podcast, said there's a bunch of smaller ones in smaller towns that might be better because they're not quite as crowded, not quite as touristy. So I would definitely like to go back there for one of those. But yeah, it was great. I love the weather. It was cool there. You hardly have to use AC. Like here, I came back here and it was like 98 and then an air conditioner crapped out. So yeah, Germany's awesome. I would definitely go back. It was better than I thought it would be.
How many days were you there?
8 days total.
Did you feel the rush and busyness of being on vacation?
What I tried to do every time I started feeling like that, I said, okay, we're going to cut the rest of the stuff we had planned out for the day because I didn't want that kind of anxiety. I think that makes for a subpar trip. So like we were in Munich and we went to the concentration camp. I'm like, I was going to plan all this other stuff, but let's just cancel that. It'll be something I can go to next time we're here. I wish we could have gone there for more time, actually. I didn't want to. We had other scheduling constrictions, but yeah, if I could, I think a week or two. If I go back there, I would actually like to go there for like a month and just live in a couple different places, maybe 2 different places for 2 weeks each.
Yep. I think that's the way to do it. And we'll talk about that some for the San Diego trip. But yeah, I mean, the slow travel is what we had done in the past. Once we realized we had that kind of flexibility. And yeah, it takes so much of the pressure off. Obviously, you're at a place longer, so you could do more. But like the day-to-day just feels like calmer. So you can do like one thing that day and then just have the rest of the day kind of open. Things will pop up because you didn't plan for anything, but like some opportunity will come up that you wouldn't have been able to do, like if you filled your time up all the way. So, But it is a luxurious thing if you're like, yeah, I'm going to go somewhere for like a month or two
Yeah.
and just, I mean, it's pretty tough to do. You got to plan ahead. So
Yeah, I hate the word travel. One more comment about this. I don't even like that word. I don't want to, when I'm older, especially after our kids are out of school, I don't want to say I'm traveling. I want to say I'm going to go live in another place for like a month and just get an Airbnb. And a lot of times it is luxurious, but if you're doing like a longer term stay, it might be cheaper because you can negotiate. Hey, I'm going to stay in your Airbnb for a month. What rate can you give me? Or it just might turn out it's cheaper than a hotel where you've got a staff and turning it over. And then you could live in a neighborhood. You're not in a tourist spot. You've got a place to cook, and you could just, like you said, you can go out, see something maybe in the morning, go to the beach, but then like sit back and read or watch a movie. You don't feel the pressure. You could just live there instead of traveling there.
yep. Yeah. Cause you're like, oh, we're only here for X number of days and however many days. It's like not enough. Like you're not going to be able to see all the stuff that you want to see and do all the things you want to do.
So, Doug, you went to one of my favorite places in the world. I was there recently, and where I like it so much, we're going back there in October, and this is San Diego, and you have never been there, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think it's worth it to explore like the trip that we were thinking of doing. And we decided on San Diego instead. So at first, we were actually going to visit with some friends who travel up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan often. So that was the initial idea. And then like that sort of fell through. That would have been fine, but I'm not a water person just in general, even though we ended up back in a watery place. But I don't care about lakes. I'm not going to get on a boat. I don't fish. Like I don't care really too much about the water. So then when that plan fell through, we're like, Hawaii. We haven't been there in a while. And I even got some suggestions from you, Maui, Kauai, that sort of thing. And we really liked it there when we went in the past, but it was very expensive. Flights were way higher than we were thinking. And like all the lodging was really expensive. So we're like, okay, what about San Diego? I've never been to Southern California. There's tons of beer there. We hear it's fantastic. You had just been a few months ago. And once we started looking, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be really awesome. So all the things that I had heard were true, maybe even better. So it's like the beaches are fantastic. It was actually very clean for the number of people that were out there. I'm used to beaches in the Southeast. So like Florida, maybe like South Carolina. And this is years ago, so maybe things have changed, but I feel like those Southeast beaches are just kind of trashy. There's some nicer ones, there's some more upscale areas, but just in general, I'm like, I don't like those beaches too much. Maybe I'm just like lumping the Southeast. People shoot me an email if I'm completely wrong. I have heard there's like, really upscale areas where the beaches are fantastic, but compared to San Diego, I was like, this is so different. One huge difference is the temperature. So those beaches in the South, I was just like melting. So hot. It's 90, 100 degrees, just kind of miserable. And then San Diego was about 60 to about 72
So good.
every single day. And it was really just pleasant weather. So a little cool if you're out there for a long time and you get in the water, and then that could be a little bit cooler, but that's fine. I wasn't spending a huge amount of time in the water anyway.
So one issue I have with San Diego beaches is most of the time we've been there, it hasn't been in the main, like June, July, August. In the beaches, there aren't that many people on there. You could pretty much plop down anywhere. And one time we went like in June or July, and it was especially near like a major road that was packed with people. Like you couldn't even find a spot. You had to walk like down the boardwalk a bit. Was it super busy when you were there?
No, there were a lot of people at certain times in certain areas, and it never felt like too crowded. It was like a nice number of people. So you felt like, some energy from, kids playing and like people playing volleyball or kicking a soccer ball or something. We were there from like a Tuesday to Tuesday. So most of the time was non-weekend. When it was the weekend, it was pretty crowded, and we were at Mission Beach specifically, like in between the bay and the beach. So we had kind of a great location. And if you went a little bit further north to Pacific Beach, it was a lot more crowded. I think maybe that's a bigger hub or something like that, maybe more commercial stuff or more parking. I'm not quite sure, but it was more crowded up there. But I never felt like it was insane. Now, one day we did go over to Coronado, and it was Monday, so it was a holiday. It was a federal holiday. That beach was extremely packed. There were tons and tons of people. You could still find a spot to lay down or set up shop, but that was way more dense.
Got it. That's where the Navy SEALs are close to, I think, like the famous Navy SEAL beach, I think, is down there.
Okay. I do not know. I just know the Coronado is the little island off the mainland.
Cool.
So you just take a bridge over there, and yeah, really nice, very upscale spot. And oh yeah, did you have another question generally?
Did you go out on the Pacific Beach Pier? I think that's what it's called. The big pier that you can walk out on at the.
We did not. So that appeared to be it was like a little hotel or something like that. Like there's little cabins on there, and it was closed off.
Oh, okay. They usually, when I've been there, they close it off like it's open from like 8 to 8 or something like that, and then after hours they shut a gate. But yeah, maybe it's changed.
Oh, and you know what? I didn't pay too much attention. I think like the couple of times we walked by, I was like, oh, they have it closed. And I think you could like pay to go get access if you weren't staying on. I mean, they have like little cottages on there. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it looked cool, but we never walked out that way.
Okay. Speaking of asparagus, did you go to the clothing optional section at the beach?
No, we didn't.
Okay. I just made that up. There's no such thing.
There is a clothing optional beach, but we didn't go to that.
God, it sounds like it wouldn't be worth it. Just you'd have to buy a lot of sunscreen, and
yeah,
those are delicate parts that I've never seen sunscreen before. But you definitely don't want them burned either. So you don't want them. I mean, that would be very bad.
Yeah, you have to cover everything. Yeah.
I'm just thinking on this now. You could get in trouble. Like you go there and you start applying sunscreen to places. Like, no, officer, I was just applying sunscreen. I swear. How do I get burned? Talk to the judge, kid.
Yeah. It's like, it's starting to burn. Come on. Okay. We'll get this back on track. Now, one thing that I planned this out specifically. So I didn't want to get a rental car. I didn't want to drive anywhere. I didn't want to have to worry about parking, and rental cars are expensive. Gas is really expensive right now. So it made sense. And I was like, if I just, ballpark it, it'll be hundreds of dollars just to rent a car and pay for gas. And I'm pretty sure we can just Uber everywhere, and it'll be cheaper and way more convenient and then less stress. You don't have to figure out where you're going exactly, and, navigate on highways you're not used to and all that kind of stuff. It worked out great. The side benefit is you're not tempted to like go on a 2-hour excursion. A couple people were like, oh, you got to check out this or that. And I'm like, I don't have a car. I don't even have to make that decision. Like, we're not going there. And the thing is, the beach is the destination. We were like steps away. Like it literally took like 20 seconds to go out our door and be on the beach. And like, that's the place to spend the time. So I was like trying to make it easy to have an activity where, I mean, even just walking on the boardwalk or the beach, like that's a fun thing to do over and over again. Like I think you could do it every day.
Yeah. That was our tradition. We would stay in Mission Beach, kind of by the amusement park, and walk up to that pier and back, which I think is 4-6 miles. And it's so good just to see the waves. And I'm curious, did you try any alternative forms of transportation? They've got the scooter rentals there, and I think they've got e-bikes, which you can tool around on. Did you give those a shot?
No, we didn't. The one side note. So there's boardwalks all along the beach area and the bay, and it was very crowded on the boardwalk. And like, I think I just got the impression from like sort of where it got narrow, and I saw people trying to ride bikes and get around, and like even just walking, it gets a little congested. And I was like, I don't think I want to try and ride a bike around here. Now, of course, you can hop over to the bay or go further down the boardwalk and there's a little more space. It's not as congested, but I was like, I don't want to try to ride a bike over here. Now, I did start getting interested in skateboarding and like the longboards. I was like, that looks kind of fun. I rode a skateboard when I was like 10 to 12 or so. Thought it was pretty fun. Did you ever get into skateboarding?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you good or?
No, I could do like ollies and some other basic tricks.
Okay.
That was the extent of it.
Yeah, it wasn't very good, but I saw the longboards and, people seem like they were pretty chill and like lazily, like just going along. It looked very steady. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll rent one of those. But our friend, David, I always mess up the last name, David Boyer.
Yeah, it's spelled like that beer place that your friend has in Berlin, right? Maybe that's a correct pronunciation. Breuer.
So David's son, Q, had a skateboard. So I rode like a little kid's skateboard a little bit on the boardwalk by the bay, which was pretty fun. It was certainly too small, and it was sort of like a more of a trick skateboard, so a little bit shorter, and it was made for a kid. So it was a little shaky at first, but I actually like got the hang of it, and my balance was fine, and it was pretty fun. And for a second, I was like, maybe I'll have a longboard out here. They got all the shops; you could buy anything you want. Luckily, I knew it would be twice as expensive as you could probably buy it anywhere else, but I ended up not getting a longboard. But I was like, that's pretty fun. I may check it out because we have a nice greenway around here, and it could be fun to just zip around. I don't have a reason other than just like, you can cover more ground a little faster.
Yeah, you can get electric versions of those too to go even faster.
Yeah, several people did have those, and they'd zip by pretty fast. But I don't think that doesn't seem safe for me. I'd have to put pads on and stuff. But yeah, just the old traditional. I do it potentially more for exercise, so I don't think riding on the electric one would be as helpful.
It would be the opposite.
Yeah.
You could be walking, but riding a skateboard.
Yeah, but they go pretty fast. People use it to commute and stuff like that. So one crazy thing, we did see someone riding like a Onewheel, those whatever. Yeah, it's I don't know what you call it. It's like a unicycle, but it's like a motorized electric unicycle. And they were commuting. They were in the bike lane. They were going fast, going down like a huge hill. Cars are going by at like 60 miles an hour. They have a helmet and they're like all outfitted with like basically armor.
Yeah, those things are awesome.
Yeah, that also looks terrifying. Would you ride one of those?
I have, and I'm less scared on that than I've ridden both the electric skateboard and that. The Onewheel I think is much safer because it like moves with your body. You lean forward like you're one with the Onewheel, whereas a skateboard you're kind of fighting the thing. You hit the gas and you kind of like fall off the thing, or you stop and you kind of go forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the Onewheel.
Have you done a Segway?
I have never done a Segway before. No.
Okay. We've done Segway tours in towns that we visited, and they're really fun. They're like if you get a chance, like do a Segway tour because you cover more ground.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's like safer or less safe than like a one-wheel situation or anything like that. At least you got something to hang on to with a Segway.
Yeah, I think it's definitely safer. The only reason I could get on a Onewheel and take off and know how to do it, I think, was because of past skateboard experience. I think the average person, there'd probably be a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, and the Segways are super easy. They get you to zip around the parking lot. There's like little kids, grandmothers, like anyone is able to figure it out in a few minutes. So yeah, the Onewheel seems nuts. I would not get on one of those. Okay. Yeah, Ubering was a great idea. And we did get to ride two Teslas. So that was my first time in a Tesla, a couple Model 3s, and they were great. They were so smooth, and both of the drivers had just picked them up. So one guy had his for 5 days, the other one for like 3 weeks, but it was fantastic.
So I know some companies will lease you a Tesla to put on Uber. Did these guys actually own the Tesla, or do you have any idea? Or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but that would be a good business model. It sounded like they were it seemed like they bought him, but who knows?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. You're buying a $60,000 car to work for Uber, but
That's what I thought too. But the one guy showed me like, here's how much like basically a tank of, charge cost. And he's like, it was like $10 for like 300 miles or something. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. If you're driving that much, like you'd make it back pretty quick at the gas prices that, it was like $6.50 to $7, I think, in most places.
holy crap.
Yeah. So pretty insane. And I would, the side note with being unable to drive, like I think Elizabeth, she was like, I kind of would want to have a car here next time. But I enjoyed the constraint of you can't like go drive around, and you can't, like I said, go on a 2-hour trip to go see like one little thing or whatever. And I wanted to get bored where it's like, oh, it'd be cool to go this other place, but why don't we just lay on the beach or walk around some more or something? So, it didn't turn out exactly like how I expected, because I ended up being a little more busy, just in general. So,
Got it.
but it was cool because David actually did drive us around quite a bit, and he knows the area, and he's like recently retired in the last year or so. And we'll give him a shout out. His site is phyology.com, right?
Yep.
So people can check that out. He has basically like, I think it's a 52 lesson situation where he curates content and he emails the list of material, and it's sort of a lesson plan, right? Have you looked at it very closely and dug in?
I've looked through his workbook. I have not taken his online class, but I think it's free too.
It is free. Yeah, it's totally free. So you just sign up and you can see what he has curated.
Yeah.
So David drove us around and helped us out a lot, and like, check this out and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thanks to David quite a bit. And you've visited him out there before, right?
Yeah, I stayed with him last time I was out there. Yeah, David's awesome. I think he's since moved. I don't know if he's closer to the beach now, but he was a bit out when I was there.
Okay. Yep. And I think he's moving much closer now. So, we stayed at an Airbnb, which turned out great. Like I mentioned, the location was very good. It wasn't anything super fancy, but it was like enough room. There was a full kitchen. Everything was fine. We hardly cooked in there. That is something like potentially that we could have done more of, but I love trying new food and I want to go to a bunch of different places. So for me, I think we cooked like one thing in there and we got some fruit and that sort of thing. But yeah, we just ate out almost every single meal and nothing crazy. I did get to have a lot of seafood, which I enjoy. And when I'm by the water, I'm like, all right, I want to eat more fish and stuff. So had some sushi and some Pokey. Do you like Pokey? Do you get into that?
I don't think I've ever had it. Is that like raw salmon bowls or what is it?
Yeah, usually it's tuna or salmon. And yeah, it's rice and, some other veggies and stuff like that. But yeah, raw fish.
Okay. Did you have, I remember you told me your best meal was, I think, in Kona, Hawaii, the guy with the fish right by the ocean. Did any meals rival that? Or?
No, that was really good. And the story on that one is it's called the Pokey Shack on the Big Island, and it's in the parking lot of like a hotel. And it's just like a random little, small, tiny little kind of shack almost. But the owner of the place was, doing some stuff in a giant cooler, and he was like, yeah, I'm just brining it. So we chatted with him for a while, and he was like, yeah, I get the fish and I buy it right off the boat. I just got this one in. So it was like a giant yellowfin tuna that he was brining. And he was like, a lot of people say like the best fish is like right off the boat, and you cut it right off the fish and it's so fresh and all that. And he was like, it's usually not. He was like, it's not that great. Like you got to brine it first. So there's like some additional flavor. And I thought that was interesting because everyone is like, eat it right off the fish on the boat. So fresh. Anyway, so he brined it, and I got a picture of this guy in Hawaii. The Pokey Shack is what it's called. So if you're ever on the Big Island, check it out. The Pacific Beach Pokey shop was very good, but it didn't rival the Hawaiian, which you would expect, I would think.
Yeah.
So, we did have a very good breakfast burrito from some other place, and I mean, there were so many places to eat. Several times we did just order a burger and fries because it's kind of a bar situation, and I try not to expect too much from certain places. So I think we tried to order something more elaborate in some places, and then eventually I was like, fuck it. They're not going to mess up a burger and fries. It'll be fine. We're not going to worry about it too much. But I got my sushi fix and like the Pokey, plenty of tacos, breakfast tacos, and like tacos otherwise. And there were 20 other places within half a mile that I would want to try. I just like didn't get a chance to, because one thing that we run into on vacation is we're just so full because, like I said, I'm into food. So I want to go and try more stuff. And eventually we're like, I can't wait to just have like a couple salads and not feel the pressure to keep eating. It's a weird self-inflicted problem. And speaking of places that we ate, many of those spots were breweries. So that's one thing. Like if it's not a place known for the food and it's just a brewery, like let them do the beer, order a burger, keep it simple, and then check out the beer. So it was kind of surprising. This was eye-opening. As soon as I saw you, you were like, what did you think of the beer in San Diego? Because it is such a wonderful beer scene. And I think it was fine. And I think my answer was disappointing. I was like, it was fine. I drank a lot of IPAs. They were good. And part of it is the beer culture is like gotten so advanced. Like even a small brewery in a small town can be really good. And then we're in this Boulder County area where the beer is awesome. Most places, the beer is very good. So it was pretty good. There were no places or no beers where I was like, oh, holy shit, I have to tell people about this. Everything was fine. So were you surprised that I came back with such a vanilla kind of answer?
I don't know where you went to, except the one you told me about. So I know some of the more highly regarded ones are further out. I know there's one place that has some kind of, I can't remember what they call it, but they do a lot of barrel aged, like fancy stuff. But you would not have been able to go to that. So yeah, I guess it depends. A lot of the things on the beach, like you're paying for the view and not so much the beer. Yeah, like Modern Times is good, but it's not any better than anything else we have around here. So yeah, I don't know. Beer's hard. Like the things that I thought were stupendous 4 or 5 years ago are just kind of, they're still good. They're still great, but I don't lust after them like maybe before. Like the Pliny the Elder is the beer that people would go crazy for here, and now you have it. It's like, yeah, this is still really good, but everyone else has come up and that's kind of stayed the same. So it doesn't have the allure it used to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll shout out a couple places. And one thing I'd rather, not all the time, but I'd rather go to like a tap room or a place that has like multiple beers than like just a specific brewery, especially like in this situation where there's 120 breweries that we could go to in the vicinity. It's like, just send me to a tap room. I can get a sampler and then try like several different things. We did go to a couple breweries, went to Stone, went to a place called Amplified Ale Works, which was like 120 steps from where we were staying. So it was just convenient. But I think many of the beers were very good. So we went to Coronado, Amplified. We didn't make it to Modern Times, but we did try some of their beers, had some Lost Abbey, Ballast Point, Mike Hess we went to as well. But yeah, all the beer was very good, but I was never like, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing. And you were talking about the barrel age stuff, like that would be cool and it's interesting, but typically, right, I want to drink a few beers, and a lot of times barrel age stuff is like a little more special, and you can't, like, you're not drinking like 3 or 4 barrel aged things.
Yep.
So it's a tough mix to like figure out what to do on vacation. And then on top of it, so many other places do a really good barrel aged program. So it's like the bar's higher even for like the really special stuff. So I think I've matured as a beer drinker, and I was just like, hey, this is great. I'm enjoying it. I'm not like getting too into it, but trying some stuff from many different places. Now, I see where we are actually coming up on the end of time here. So I'm going to jump ahead to a surprising thing that popped up. And that is we saw Steve Martin and Martin Short do a stand-up show like at this venue right on the water. It was very cool. And I'm a big fan of Steve Martin. I like Martin Short a lot. I watched a lot of his stuff like in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, it was really awesome to see. Steve Martin played a little banjo and had a bluegrass band that played along with him a little bit, but very funny. And it was just random thing, pretty economic too. The tickets were only $60.
Okay. Where was that? What was the venue?
It was called I think it's called the Ratty Shell something. It's like the Shell Center. And I think it's where the symphony plays. Okay. So, and it's facing perfectly. So you can like have the sunset and be on the water, and then the show's going on and the sun isn't shining like directly in your face. Like they placed it really well. I think it's a kind of a new venue.
Huh. Awesome.
Yeah. But if you get a chance to go there, you should do it. And I think we would have liked to see more bluegrass and banjo. Like overall, I think they only play like maybe 3 songs or so. But yeah, it was amazing. Are you a Steve Martin fan or?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard his stand-up comedy, but his movies were always amusing. I remember the Jerk. Remember that movie, like from when we were kids, or?
Yeah. But, yeah, and I didn't. Now that I think about it, I guess I haven't watched too much of his stand-up, but I did listen to his audiobook, which if you have a chance to check it out, it's very good. It's called Born Standing Up. But he was like he played like arenas as a stand-up, and then he got burned out and was like, I'm out. And then started writing movies and acting in movies. Did that for a while. And now he's like a world-class banjo player.
Yeah, he's cool. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from him, and it's, be so good they can't ignore you. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a great trip. And, I think halfway through we were trying to figure out how we could stay there for like a month or 2. So like when it would work to go out there. But I think it would be great to get away from here, like in the winter, or actually in the summer, even because it's so damn hot. But yeah, San Diego is pretty awesome.
Yeah. We've thought about buying a property there. If we could make it work, even not make money, just have it pay for itself, I would do that in a second. We've actually looked at things there, like not on the beach, too expensive, but maybe a couple block walk away would be acceptable. Like you said, that area in between the bay and the ocean.
Yeah. We'll talk. We thought about that too. And we're like, I wonder if that would work, but it's very expensive. But if you just need like a small, like 1 bed, 1 bath condo or something, like that could be, we could work together on that. Yeah. It'll be the Mile High Fi, like beach condo.
Mile High Fi West.
All right. Any other final thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm thankful to be financially independent, that we could go on these fun adventures. And let's find a way to be in San Diego for longer periods of time.
Yeah, it's so fun there. I mean, it's a little expensive. And the secret's out. Like, it's nice there. People know.
Yeah, the fun thing real quick, there's that big like castle thing right on Mission Beach. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a big junk shop, and it actually looks like a castle. It's on the boardwalk or whatever.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we happened to be there when the guy who owns that thing was there. His name was Jake, and he owns like 18 of these, like, I'll say junk shop. It's all a bunch of crap, like for tourists and all that. So Minnie and I sat down and talked to that guy for like, I don't know, half an hour. And he was saying how rough that area used to be. He's like, when I first came here, I remember coming here and there was like a big, like arranged like gang fight on the beach. And they used to have to shut down the beach at night. And he was talking about it like it was the Wild West. Like, this seems so weird now because it's so nice and beautiful here. I can't ever imagine Mission Beach being rough, but apparently it was.
Crazy.
We should have bought at that time.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine now. But anyway, yeah, this was great. Good catching up, Carl. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yes. Doc of Shane.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the Mile High 5 podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer, this show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just 2 guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week. What was the most unusual food that you had on your trip?
Germany is pretty conservative, and they do eat some weird shit there. But I don't know. I've got an aversion to things I haven't had before. And to think about it logically, it doesn't make sense because we eat all kinds of weird shit, especially if you're a carnivore. You eat like mussels. That's what you're eating with animals. But so I try to avoid weird stuff. I'm not going to eat like brains or organs or anything like that. But the one weird thing we did eat was pork knuckle, and I assume that's actually the knuckle of a pig or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we had that. It was good. It was actually Mindy ordered it, and I tried a little bit of it. But yeah, other than that, pretty boring. Sauerkraut and bratwurst. Germany doesn't have a big exotic food scene.
Okay, and the knuckle, like, so it's like their hoof area, or is that like the elbow?
I guess so. I didn't think too much about it. Do pigs have, trying to think of the anatomy of a pig, I think their front legs kind of go like ours and a knee maybe, and maybe that was the part of it. But yeah, I try not to think about these things, Doug.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because you were like, well, I guess it's just the knuckle of the pig. And I'm like, well, they don't have fingers or toes as far as I know. So I'm not sure which part of but yeah, maybe it's in like the joint, like the knee area. Because like I'm trying to, what was there like a foot looking part of it?
No. If it looked like that, it would not have gone anywhere near my mouth. It just looked like if I would not have known that, I would not have guessed it was knuckle. I just would have thought it was some cut of beef or whatever from the pig. I guess it's not beef. What do you call the other white meat? I don't know.
Pork?
Yeah, pork.
Pork meat. Okay. Well, that's cool. All right. Yeah. And I have a whole section on food. So that was a big part, but